I'm really excited today for our session. Obviously, we have, I think this individual goes without saying in our industry. He's well known. People know him. But just in case, we're really excited. We have Barry Habib here, CEO of MBS Highway. Obviously, you see him a lot within the industry, on TV, CNBC, MSNBC, Fox, all that good stuff. Obviously, we see him at a lot of our conventions. He's a huge resource and advocate for the space, right? Mortgage just in general, but then specifically when you start getting into kind of correspondent and broker, he's a real friend to the industry. He's a friend to us here at Flagstar. And he's got a real good segment that he's going to work with us today on how to grow your business by removing friction around today's challenges. So with that being said, I'd love to bring Barry back on the stage.
Hey, good to see you. Hey, everybody.
Hey, what's going on, brother? Sorry, I was mute there for a second. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Looking forward to today.
Yeah, man, we were so excited you were willing to help us out with this series. And look, I think, we can get right into it. You talk about some of these challenges in the marketplace, and we hear a lot of things, right? You're looking at, Jesus, we talk about lack of inventory, supply chain, lack of materials, constraints around timing, affordability, cash buyers, escalation clauses, issues going on in the industry with just getting an appraisal done, right? Then you start looking at all these things around inflation, the Fed, tapering buying, the housing bubble, doesn't exist. There are so many challenges when an originator wakes up today to do their job. And I'm just so thankful that you were willing to be here today to help some of our business partners kind of navigate through the next couple of months and what they should be focused on. So I appreciate you doing this.
Well, it's an honor to be here, first of all, and you are a great friend for so many years. So, you can always count on me to do anything I can to be of service. And those of you that are watching, let me first say thank you, because you guys are all busy. I'm extremely honored, and it's taken very seriously that you're willing to devote time to spend. So I promise to do the really best I can to make sure that this time that you're spending is very valuable. I think that what you should know first is that I will be monitoring the comments, so you can enter comments, right? So you can put in anything that you'd like. I'll kind of try and glance over. John will be monitoring that as well. So
yep.
We want this to be something that is most meaningful for you. The only thing I'm going to ask you today is that a lot of the things we're going to be talking about, they kind of build on each other. So they're going to be things that are important that you focus and pay attention. So I'm as ADD as anyone, my phone, I got text, I got the emails, I've got, all kinds of stuff going on. People are going to be calling me during this. So let's just be present for each other here. Maybe treat this as if you were doing an application for someone, and everything else will be on hold for the next 45 to 50 minutes or so, because I promise you will be growing your business. You're going to be working on your business right now for the next 45 minutes instead of in your business. And there's a big difference there. And that's one of the real ways to help make sure we grow. And I promise to make that 45 minutes that we spend really focused, really together here, meaningful, and so that you will get exponential benefit from it. So I'm going to begin if we're ready, okay?
Yeah, and Barry, one thing real quick. I'm going to jump off stage, so you'll see Barry and the presentation, let him get into his flow and his groove. Barry's comment about asking questions, there's the box down below that you can type the question, and when you hit enter, it comes to comments. And like Barry said, we'll be monitoring them, and we'll get to everyone that we can while we go. So let's do it, Barry.
Tell them where they can put the comments in so they all know.
Yeah, right on the screen when they see us, there's a box section there that they can type the question in, and when they hit enter, it comes through to us on our end inside the StreamYard that we're using. So we'll see it literally right below us.
Feel free to put a little comment in there. Let me know where you guys are from so that we can kind of see where the audience is, and that'll help us kind of gauge what to focus on while we're talking. So go ahead to do that. All right. So let's begin. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to get started. All right. We're going to do the next 45 minutes. We're going to talk about exponential growth by removing points of friction. And we all come up against points of friction, but it is completely possible to go through periods of time by removing these points of friction that give you just this spurt of growth, this incredible period where things are just clicking and going right for you. So what we want to do is we want to get exponential growth as opposed to linear growth. So linear is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exponential is 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. And it makes a huge difference. So I've got a question for you, and here it is. You could put your answer in the chat box, but here it is. Would you rather have $100,000 or a penny that would double every day for a month? So you can put your answer in the chat box if you want, and you tell me what you'd rather have. So let's go through it just to make sure everybody's on the same page here. So that means if we started on a Sunday, it'd be a penny. Then it would go to 2 cents on Monday, then 4, 8, 16, 32. At the end of a week, you'd have 64 cents, a far cry from $100,000. So let's see what happens at the end of the second week. So we go and we double, 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 double. And exponentially now after 2 weeks, half the month practically is over. We got $81, a lot less than 100,000. Now we go to week number 3. And you can see now we start to mount, and we're about $10,000 after 3 weeks, still way off $100,000. But here's when it really starts to grow. Those doubles that keep occurring at the end of the 4th week, you've got $1.3 million. And you go to day 29, $2.6 million. And then day 30, $5.3 million. That's the benefit of exponential growth. Oh, by the way, we're in July. July has 31 days in the month, doesn't it? So if it had 31 days, it'd be $10.7 million. A lot more than $100,000. That's just a penny doubling every day. So you could see this is an amazing way to grow, is by exponential growth. But as you could see, when you double, it is the last double is the one you want. You want to get as many doubles, which means the earlier you start, the more doubles you get. The lesson here is that procrastination is an absolute killer. A man invented a game of chess, and when he brought it to the king says, oh my God, this is a game that would be just so amazing and useful for many generations. He said, name your price. I'll take anything. He says, well, the chessboard has 64 squares. Just give me 2 grains of wheat on the first box and then double it for each of the subsequent 64 squares. King says, oh, that's a reasonable offer. Well, not realizing that 2 to the 64th power would give you enough wheat to cover China 4 inches deep. So what you want to try and do is always get the last double. You always want to start earlier. You always want to put yourself in a position to not procrastinate. So we're going to learn today should be implemented by you as quickly as possible. Don't take this stuff and say, oh, well, I'll put it. You want to get started right away. Now, you might have seen this before. It's called an S curve. The S curve looks something like this, kind of like an S. But what it's telling us here is that many of us in our business, we're growing in a linear way as opposed to exponential. So we're getting growth. We're doing good. We're improving. But then we come up against a point of friction. And if we can remove this point of friction, what we see is this huge spurt of exponential growth. But it doesn't always last forever. It kind of levels off as it matures. So we want to try and do is stack these on top of each other. Now, removing points of friction is really important. What are the points of friction that are around us? They're everywhere. As any situation with a lack of trust creates friction, right? So how do we do that? Well, if there's a lack of experience, that oftentimes leads to a point of friction. I remember when I started in the business, I was a pretty young guy in my 20s, and I didn't have as much experience, certainly not as much experience as my competitors because I was just starting, but also to gain the trust of the clients I was dealing with, where I was a lot younger than they were. The referral sources, I was a lot younger. Getting their trust to give up their transaction as a referral to somebody like me who was wet behind the ears was a point of friction that I had to overcome. But what I wanted to do is build trust, and you can build trust 2 ways. So the first way to build trust is with expertise and knowledge. I mean, think about it. Don't you trust someone a little bit more when they start to show you that they have expertise, that you're learning from them? You just naturally trust them more, because here's what happens in your brain. Your brain says, okay, well, this person has a lot of qualities that would lead me to trust them. They're dedicated. They put in the time. They put in the effort. They're knowledgeable. They are doing all the hard work up front before they've met with me so that they're prepared. And subconsciously, we make that decision to gravitate towards them and trust them a little bit more. The other is to be vulnerable. Being vulnerable, and we're going to talk more about this, means telling them everything bad about the transaction. And this is important, team. This is important in life. This is not just a business thing. Okay. You build trust, and trust is really important. Think about it in a love relationship. Think about it in a family relationship. Trust is everything, right? And vulnerability is a key to building trust. Vulnerability with your customer is essentially saying that I'm putting your best interest ahead of my commission. So I'm not going to sell you on this. I'll show you the good features, but I'm also going to tell you everything you need to watch out for and everything wrong with this transaction and make myself vulnerable because I want us to be working on this as a team. I don't want to be on the opposite side of the table. I want to be on the same side of the table. It's hard to do, but if you do this, you completely change your business forever and your relationships. Let me tell you a little bit about me. I saw points of friction when I was a loan officer. Listen, remember, I'm just like you, okay? I'm one of you. I have so much respect for you because I know what you go through. I know what it's like to start off each month at zero. I know what it's like to have people that you work for hard and then they turn their back on you. People shop you, go somewhere else. I get it. Real estate agents that make you, have a little bit of a more difficult time. I get it. I get it because I did loans for 20 years, just about 20 years. And my personal originations was me and one assistant. We did $2.1 billion. So I'm with you. I get it. I understand what you guys go through. And what I noticed back when I was originating as a major point of friction for LOs is that they would have reprices, which were very costly. They gave you a lot of heartburn because there was really no way to monitor what was going on. They made bad lock decisions and they had a lack of market knowledge. And they were pretty much winging it, or guessing, or not even answering those questions. So what did I do? I saw, hey, this is a point of friction. And I created a product that alleviated this lack of confidence that originators had in these subject matters. It alleviated the anxiety and the time drain with all of these points of friction. So what did I do? I created a company called Mortgage Market Guide, and it went viral. It had exponential growth, literally exponential growth. It became pretty ubiquitous within the industry. And that was a business that I was able to sell by removing points of friction and seeing that growth. Now, once I had done that, I'd done some other things that were fun. I had a non-compete to sit out for a little bit. So I got into the entertainment industry and I noticed there were points of friction there. Some of you might know that I was the managing partner and lead producer for Rock of Ages, which was the 27th longest running show on Broadway. But I noticed something that really helped us get exponential growth. And it's something that was kind of minor. But I noticed that when people came into the theater, they oftentimes were already starting off with a bad impression because people rushed to get there. We were on Broadway, it's on Manhattan, and they'd come in, they'd want to have a nice drink to relax, an adult beverage. They get online. By the time they get their drink, the show's about to start. But the rules on Broadway were you were not allowed to drink in the seats. That was a big point of friction. And people were already a little bit pissed off before the show even started. And now I had to win them back over. So I was like, why do we have to put people through this? Let's allow them to drink in the seats. And they said, no, Barry, we're not supposed to do that. I said, why? They said, because we've never done that before. Well, that's not a very good answer for me. So it took me a lot of effort and assurances and hiring security to make sure that the crowd wouldn't get rowdy from drinking. But we became the very first show in the history of Broadway to allow drinking in the seats. And people went crazy for it because they had a much better experience in time. Now, every show on Broadway does it. But we were the first. I was the pioneer. And what did I look at? A point of friction, and made that solution. And we did get exponential growth with Rock of Ages. One of the other things I did is I got into the medical industry. And I noticed one thing that, listen, God forbid, I hope you never have to go for any scans because you don't feel well. But if you've had this experience and you've gone for a scan, the techs doing the scan, they know exactly what's going on, but yet they're precluded from talking to you. Hey, how's it look? What's going on? What do you think? Oh, I can't talk to you. Your doctor will talk to you about that. You know what I'm saying. So I did not think that that was a very good way to go about it. Why give people anxiety? This is a terrible thing to put people through. So when I got into the medical imaging business, I opened one and then grew it to 3 centers before selling it. It was in Baltimore. And what I had was a radiologist right on site. Now, initially it cost me more, but the centers grew dramatically because people love this. If it was good news, you walked out of there feeling great. If it wasn't the best news, at least you had a plan that was better than the anxiety. So looking at points of friction and solving them gave me exponential growth in different areas: medical, entertainment, mortgage. And that's because, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, points of friction are all over. So there's no lack of points of friction for us. I mean, think about the exponential growth you have recently seen. Now, 2020 was the best year in history for the mortgage business. And it's simply because a point of friction was removed. What was the point of friction, everybody? You know what it was. It was interest rates. Interest rates came down, removed a tremendous point of friction, made buying a home more affordable, made refinancing more sensible. Appreciation that was in homes made it easier to take cash out. We removed points of friction and we grew exponentially. So this is a prime example of what you have experienced. Only one problem with this, though. Only one problem is that we didn't plan for it. We didn't do it. We didn't strategize. This was a gift. This was due to the market, not a strategy. It's great that we get these gifts once in a while, but we don't want to depend on gifts. We want to control our own destiny. We want to be able to remove points of friction that we identify and solve, and then experience this exponential growth, even when our competitors aren't. This point of friction that was removed lifted an entire industry to exponential growth, and that's wonderful. We'll take the gift, but we don't want to depend on it. So let's take a look at the points of friction that we currently see all around us. You probably can name several of them. I know when we first started, John rattled off quite a few, right? Well, let's take a look at one that's a prime one that we're facing, our real estate agents are facing, and our clients are facing, and that is a lack of inventory. So when there's a lack of inventory, we are seeing now that 65% of transactions are bidding above asking price. 65%, and that's down from 74% in April. But still, 65% bids above asking price, 2 out of 3 transactions. So here's an example that I just pulled up here. And when we are bidding above asking price, and I don't know if you saw me on Patrick Bet David's show, we did this live and people went nuts for it. There's such demand for this. If you look at it, the thing's got over 100,000 views in a week, because this is the type of thing that people are really interested in right now. It's a big point of friction. Think about the exponential growth if you remove this. So here's a property in Tampa. And the story with this particular property is that the estimated value, according to the AVM, we have an AVM and MBS Highway, it's $502,000. And the listing price of the home is $499,000. So in order to buy this home in a competitive environment, this buyer has to bid $20,000 over asking price, and they can get the home for $519,000. Let's call it $520,000. So the home's worth about $500,000, but they got to bid $20,000 more at $520,000. Now, by the way, don't think I don't understand a few things here. Some of you are in markets where there are much greater amounts over asking price. I get that. I know that. Okay. I'm just giving you one example. And I also know that we run into additional headwinds here because we are fully cognizant of the fact that the appraisal value is going to be based on actual appraised value or purchase price, whichever is lower. And therefore, this may cause the need for MI or the need for additional cash. I'm with you. I get it. Okay. I'm part of the team here. I know exactly what you're going through. This is not an easy time. It's a challenging time for this. There is friction. That's why removing points of friction can be so beneficial. But there are many cases where the buyer can do this at $520,000, but they're still hesitant because not everybody wants to pay more than asking price. And quite frankly, sometimes they put themselves in a tough position because they pay a lot more than asking price because they got wrapped up in this emotional exercise as opposed to a logical exercise. See, the logical way to look at this is to ask a question that the realtor probably isn't going to be able to explain to the customer to ask because they don't understand it. Your client doesn't understand it, but you need to, and you be the advisor, you be the guiding light. Here's the question. When in the future will the value of the home, which is currently $502,000, when will it be greater than $519,000? After you buy the home, how long will you have to wait until what you paid is what it's worth? We can do that. See, we have the data that we can do that. So in this particular case, the home was going to break even in 4 months and over the next 5 years gain an extra $112,000. Customer was all down to go to $520,000. They were fine with that. And they wound up doing this transaction. See, we alleviated a major point of friction, and this is happening everywhere. There are so many times you're seeing $50,000, $60,000 over asking price, and it depends. If it's 5 months, if it's 8 months, maybe worth doing. But what if it's 5 years? It may not be worth doing, okay? And That's why sometimes going through with the transaction, yeah, sure, we want the transaction, but we want to be vulnerable and we always want to do what's best for the customer. Because if they're going to buy, if they're going to work with somebody, they're going to work with somebody that they trust. This helps you build that supremely valuable level of trust. But once in a while, you're competing against a cash buyer. Now, you could beat a cash buyer, you simply have to offer more. In addition to that, what if they want to go to that higher level? However, the problem is that based upon appraised value, they need additional cash and they may be coming up short with some cash. So let's do this. Let's create money out of thin air. Now, how do we create money? Now, some of you may be doing this already. That's great. But I will tell you this. If you present this to your real estate agents, this will remove a point of friction for them and give you exponential growth. People want to work with those who will help them. So let's take an example. Someone wants a mortgage of a $400,000 amount with an interest rate, and let's just call it 3%. The payment's $1,686. Everybody wants the lowest rate, right? Everybody calls you, I want the lowest rate, I want the lowest rate. No, do not take the lowest rate in this example. Let's take a higher rate. Higher rate, yeah, because if you took a rate of 3.375 instead of 3, which is the market rate, I can get you some credit towards closing costs in the range of $5,000 to $6,000. If you utilize that $5,000 to $6,000 for closing costs, now you have more money that you could then utilize or put towards reaching for that home a little bit more and winning the home of your dreams. Now, the payment's going to be higher at $1,768 versus $1,686. That's a difference of $82, but it's $6,000 less in cash that you have. That's a pretty good trade. But wait a minute. It might not cost you anything at all. It might actually save you money. How? Because by stretching, you might now put yourself in a position where you either need MI or go to a break point of MI where it becomes more expensive dependent on the LTV. By using this strategy, you may mitigate or remove the need for that and save more than the $82 a month, that it would cost for the additional interest rate. So this creativity in removing several points of friction here can change the way that your business operates, can give you that exponential growth. And by the way, all these things are great for you to be on social media with. All these things are great for you to be out there explaining to your customers, doing presentations for them, your referral sources. They love this. They need this. They're facing points of friction. You have to be that leader. Now, what about discouraged buyers? Now, we know discouraged buyers are out there. Hey, I've been looking for a house for 2 months. And listen, it's exhausting. You know that. You go out looking for a house. It's not easy. Maybe the first one you're doing 2 steps at a time when you go upstairs, but by the third or fourth one, you're exhausted. And it's tough. It's difficult to find a home, especially when there's lack of inventory. And when you see what's out there for what you're willing to spend or the terms that sellers are giving you, it's hard. It's not easy. So it's easy to get discouraged. And when people get discouraged, that's a point of friction, a big one for real estate agents, because they're putting in all this work. They're not getting paid unless the deal goes through. So they've spun their wheels, wasted time. And when the buyer says, I'm going to come back in 6 months, maybe, who knows if they'll ever come back? And that's heartbreaking. That's a big point of friction for your real estate agent. So let's put ourselves in position to alleviate that point of friction to some degree by showing that customer why they should really remain engaged or even bid above asking price. Well, we do that by showing them a cost of waiting. And this shows you that even with the same rate on this particular example, in 6 months, it's going to cost you $26,000 more because we know what the appreciation is in your zip code. We can tell you how much more it costs for the home. We can tell you how much you would have made in amortization. And then if there's a difference in interest rate, we could figure out what that is as well. So these are all of the points that we could be discussing with our customer to keep them engaged. Maybe it means them spending $10,000 more in the house, but if they're saving $26,000, well, it's a net savings of $16,000, and you could see the benefit over time as well. Or you could show them how you could do this with your realtor by co-branding it. Or you could show them a real estate report card and show them how this home would gain the money that it would gain over the next 5 years. So maybe I should spend $10,000 more or $15,000 more than I was willing to spend if I'm going to make $120,000 or $110,000 over the next 5 years. And obviously, team, this is dependent on your market, your zip code. Everyone is different, and the forecasts are very accurate. And of course, you can co-brand it with your real estate agent. Now, you probably see this all the time. CNBC took a whole day on housing bubble. You've got Fed speakers talking about it now. You've got Jerome Powell and Janet Yellen tomorrow discussing the possibility of a housing bubble and Fed policy surrounding it. So there's a lot of worry about housing bubble. So we can help our customers feel more comfortable if we can alleviate this point of friction. We can gain exponential growth. So we don't want to just say, there's no housing bubble. That's not going to be very comforting. It sounds like we're trying to talk our book and sell them. What we'd like to do is give real hard evidence as to why we believe that the housing market will remain healthy and why this is not a repeat of 2008, 2009, or 2007, however your market was affected during that period of time of the Great Recession. This is a very different period. Back then, you had a lot of investment properties. Hey, remember the movie The Big Short? You had the stripper who had 6 different properties, right? Well, today you have mostly, the vast majority are owner-occupied properties. So it's a very different dynamic just based upon that, but also the demographics are very different. And that's where I'd like to begin. This chart shows you how many people were born every single year since 1928. And you see the different generations, the boomers, Gen Xers, millennials. So we know that according to Zillow, the median age of a first-time homebuyer today is 33 years old. So let's go back 33 years. That means that this person, depending on their birthday, was born in either 1987 or 1988, which is right here. That's a 33-year-old today. They were born here. Do you notice what happened in 89, 90, 91, 92? Do you notice what happened to birth rates? Well, they soared dramatically. That big move up in birth rates tells us that over the next 4 or 5 years, we are going to see more and more and more first-time homebuyers coming of age, which means we're going to get a greater amount of demand than we have right now. Now, look, when I sold my business and Mortgage Market Guide in 2006, I actually sold it in 2007. I put up for sale in 2006. One of the primary reasons was I just didn't like the demographics. I didn't like the housing market. I thought we were in for some harsh times. When I would go on CNBC and say, don't do neg-am loans, don't do interest-only loans, that the housing market was vulnerable, I would get hate mail. But one of the main reasons, and there were many, but one of the main reasons was I looked at this very chart that we're looking at right now. And back in 2006, I went back 33 years, and that brought me to 1973. And the first-time home buyer in 2006 was born right here, which in 1973, do you notice something here? What happened to birth rates? They dropped off a cliff. There's a reason for that, and that's because in 1973, right here, 33 years before 2006, abortion was legalized. So abortion was legalized, and you had far less births, which means 33 years later, in 2006, you had far less first-time home buyers. Let me show you. This chart shows you 2 things. It shows you the bars in gold, and that's builders putting up homes. The chart also shows you bars in blue, and that shows you first-time home buyers, households growing. You could see builders putting up homes and first-time home buyers in 2002, 3, 4. They were kind of close, even 2005. But in 2006, exactly 33 years after abortion was legalized, the amount of first-time home buyers or 33-year-olds was far less. It dropped significantly. But builders didn't pay attention to demographics. Builders built more homes than they had ever built. And this is what caused the housing bubble in 2006, 2007, 2008. You had much more supply, far less demand. Now, let's pay attention to this chart. What does this tell us? Big drop, 2006, stayed flat, and then started to rise, right? Well, let's see. Isn't it interesting? Big drop, stayed flat, started to rise. Isn't that incredible? Well, it's not that incredible, actually, because these people were born, and 33 years later, they're going to come to the marketplace. So if you just look at what's happened here, you can anticipate the future. So let's do that right now. What's about to happen here, folks? What's about to happen? Yeah, these blue bars, they're going to go up. And unless builders start building a tremendous amount of homes, we're going to have home prices well supported. So how could you have a housing bubble when there's too much demand? The reason why the housing market's so hot right now is more blue bars than gold bars. More people buying homes than homes are being built. And this is what you're looking at right now. In 2021, it'll be similar to 2020. We don't have all completed data for that yet. So we know that the housing market should be well supported for price. But then people also fail to look at inventory. And inventory right now is at a record low level. Now, you can't compare it to the housing bubble in 2007 because in 2007, there were 3.7 million homes for sale. Today, there's almost 3 million less homes for sale with about 1 million homes on the market for sale. So let's break it down. People want to compare it to 2007. Let's do that. In 2007, everybody in the United States lived under the roofs of 116 million households. In 2020, that number ballooned to 128 million households. So what have we got? We got 12 million more households today than we did in 2007, but we also have 3 million fewer homes for sale. How could you have a bubble? This is an explanation of why home prices are going up. 12 million more homes or households fighting for 3 million fewer homes to buy. Now, one of the things that the media gets wrong, and you probably hear this over and over again, is there's concern over affordability. And look, with prices going up, it's only natural to think that. Now, the big number that you'll see is the median home price has gone up by 24%. That's a lot. But yet, at the same time, hourly earnings are only going up at 4%. Sure seems like we have an affordability crisis, right? And every time you see Diana Olick open her mouth, she talks about unsustainable, how this is not a good situation. Adam Data, everything that they print is something that talks about what's going on with affordability, and they say that affordability is miles away. The housing is miles away from being affordable. So is it? Well, the first thing that we have to know is that the media is really looking at the wrong metrics. They look at median home price, and median home price does not tell you appreciation. It simply tells you that half the homes were purchased below the median home price, currently $355. Half the homes above it. So why would that happen? Well, that median home price has gone up 24% because there's no inventory on the low end. Do you know homes above $1 million, that has doubled in the amount of homes purchased above $1 million? So when you have a lot of homes being purchased on the more expensive end, because that's where they're available, and less homes on the lower end because there's lack of inventory, the median home price gets skewed higher. So what you want to look at is actual appreciation, real appreciation. And that number is available to us. It's still really hot, probably hotter than I'd like, at 14%. So it's not 24, but it's still hot. Hourly earnings just 4%. Man, that seems like it's not a good combo there. But hourly earnings is not what you should be looking at. You see, you can work more hours, less hours, and especially now with the labor shortage, people are being paid overtime, time and a half, double time. So you don't want to look at hourly earnings. You want to look at really what do they make per week, because that's more indicative of what they're earning. Weekly earnings are up 7%. Now, I could see that you might still say, hey, there's a mismatch here. Real appreciation is 14%, but weekly earnings aren't keeping up at 7%. I get it. I completely understand. And that's where math starts to come in to help us. Let's look. So imagine a year ago, you wanted to buy a home, and the principal and interest payment for a home a year ago, remember this principal and interest only, is $1,000 a month. In order to qualify for that, your income would have been in the range of $5,000 a month. I'm getting these numbers from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So this is what the averages were for somebody taking out $1,000 a month payment. Their income last year would have been $5,000. So if the home indeed went up by 14%, which it did from year over year, and this home comes back on the market a year later, 14% higher. Interest rates are about the same as they were last year. So that means the 14% rise in price would mean a 14% rise in monthly payment for principal and interest, which would give you a monthly payment increase to $1,140 a month instead of $1,000, or a gain or an increase of $140 a month. Now, that is less affordable, no doubt about it, unless my income went up. Now, my income goes up $140 a month, then this house is just as affordable last year as it is this year, right? Well, how much of a percentage increase would it take for me to see my income go from $5,000 to $5,140 to offset this? Let's see. It's certainly not 14%. No, it's 2.8%. And this is what the media doesn't understand, is that it totally needs some understanding of the way math works. And when you understand this, And when you see that we are currently seeing incomes go up at 7%, we can easily handle the increase we've seen in prices, so long as interest rates remain relatively stable. It's an important one for us to understand. Now, can prices continue to rise? I mean, that's a big question, right? Price escalation has been at the expense of the homeownership rate, not a decline in prices. And here's what I mean by that. The current U.S. homeownership rate is about 66%, but we've seen California see prices rise for a very, very long time. How are they doing that? Well, California has seen its homeownership rate decrease to 55%, but homes continue to rise. Why do homes continue to rise? Because 55% homeownership rate, or 55% of the available population, still overwhelms the available supply of homes. So 55% is still more people wanting to buy homes, needing to buy homes, than the available amount of homes on the market. And that creates price appreciation. It's an important concept for you to understand. Is this a good time to buy? Well, look, we think that because of the high demand and the tight supply, we see 8% appreciation over the next year. But how good is 8% appreciation? If a customer bought a home, and let's just use numbers to get conceptualized here, for $100,000 and they put a 10% down payment, that would be a $10,000 initial investment. If the home appreciates 8% on a $100,000 home, they make an $8,000 profit. And an $8,000 profit on a $10,000 investment, it's an 80% return. Now you might say, okay, but what about the payments? Well, you got to pay the money to live somewhere. If you're renting, you got to pay rent. Your payment on this home would probably be somewhat close to the amount that you'd pay in rent. But you could still see that the return is very, very significant. That's why people create wealth with real estate. Many people have made their wealth in real estate. Let's take a look at rates, because rates can be a point of friction, can't they? Now, the first thing I want you to take a look at is a refinance. And right now rates are pretty good, but last month they were higher than they were now. And you probably had a lot of people that were a little bit butthurt. What do I mean by that? Well, let's just say if the rate was 3.25% and they're like, I want to get a rate below 3%, blah, 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 and they want to wait for the rate to go down 0.5% or this and that. Now, they may be right, but if they could save money today, they really need to take a look at it, and you need to be the guiding light to remove this point of friction so you can get exponential growth by explaining to them how to correctly evaluate that. You see, Mr. and Mrs. Client, today you could save $383 a month by refinancing. I know you want the rate below 3%. I know that if you got that drop, it would save you an additional $112 a month, and that would be very nice. But let's just say that you're right, but it takes a year to get there, and it may never get there. But let's just say you're right and it takes a year to get there. This $383 a month, that would give you like $4,600 saved. See, if you started saving today, this is how much you'd save. If you waited a year and then did it, and even if you made the additional savings, you're going to start saving money more quickly. But over time, you'd be better off doing this today and banking this and taking the sure thing, because even if you're right, it would take 4.5 years for you to break even. And who knows? You might move. We might refinance by then. We may do a debt consolidation by then. Take the sure thing now. People don't understand it if they don't see it. And another thing that's really huge is debt consolidation. Now, debt consolidation could be applicable in any market. I want to show you a crazy example. Let's say somebody's current rate were 3%. They bought their home 3 years ago for $500,000 with an 80 LTV. So they don't even have MI. And through normal appreciation and normal amortization, they've got some equity. They've got 27 years remaining on their home mortgage. But let's just get crazy, okay? Say your rate's 4%. I want to just show you how ridiculously favorable this is, even in this kind of scenario. And it cost you $4,000 for closing costs. Well, you might say this doesn't make sense, Barry. My monthly payment goes up $116 a month plus $4,000 in closing costs. This is crazy. It doesn't make sense. I'm not even going to call this customer. But when you do call the customer, you find out that by asking them a simple question, you can literally change their life and yours by saying, do you have any debt? And let's just say it's a normal customer. They got $20,000 in credit card debt. They got Best Buy and Macy's. They got a car loan with $29,000 that they took out for a Chevy. Nothing crazy. And this scenario puts them in a position of where, yes, if they did this loan, they would cost them an extra $116 a month. So on the surface, it does make sense, and especially if they put the $4,000 in closing costs into that loan. But what if we took some of the money that they have in equity now? You see, when they bought the home, it was an 80 LTV, but now it's a 60. because of appreciation and amortization. Now, I know easy as pie, I could take you to a 75, which is right here. I can adjust this to any level I want. And I have all this extra room, which we could translate to you to $91,000. So that $91,000, what if I used a portion of it to pay off my debts? What would happen? Well, if I did that, then I can save you $1,800 a month. And $1,800 a month, that's serious money. But the thing of it is, Mr. and Mrs. Client, $1,800 a month is something that would be found money for you. Right now, you're not struggling at all making your payments. You're in good shape. So yeah, you could take the $1,800. Yes, you can go out and spend it and do whatever you want with it. But what if we just did this and made believe that you keep your payment the same as you're paying now? In other words, take this extra $1,800 a month that you have in found money, and let's just, for exploring the example, take that same $1,800 a month and put it into additional payments on the new mortgage that you do with me. See, if you pay down additional principal with that $1,800 a month, you know what happens? You'd pay off the new mortgage in 11 years and 11 months. So instead of 27 years or 324 payments, you'd pay it off in 11 years and 11 months or 143 payments, which means you'd save 15 years and 1 month worth of payments. You'd save 181 payments. And remember, your total payments right now are $5,000 a month. How great is it going to feel that every single month to not have to make that 5,000 payment? In fact, isn't this the best retirement plan that you could imagine? $5,000 a month in tax-free money that you get every single month for over 15 years to help with your retirement? Do you have a plan set up for retirement at all? Probably not. And by the way, what have we changed? Nothing. You're making the exact same payment you're making now. We're just doing it smarter. Now, you don't have to wait 11 years and 11 months. We can tell you after any period of time, but let's look at a benchmark in 5 years. If you hang up the phone with me and don't do this, for sure, guaranteed, you're going to put away $48,000 in amortization. With me, you're going to put away $160,000 in amortization, tax-free and guaranteed. Doesn't matter what the stock market does, what Bitcoin does, what GameStop does. That doesn't matter. You will guarantee, just make your payment, have $111,000 extra, tax-free, guaranteed. After 10 years, you'd have $250,000, and after 11 years and 11 months, when this loan is fully paid off and you don't owe anything, $310,000. I noticed you have a 4-year-old child. Do you have college prepared for them? No, not yet. Well, now you do. The best part about it is you don't have to change a thing. Make the exact same payment you're making today. Just do it smarter. And I will take care of your retirement. I'll take care of your kids' college education, all by making the same payment. Oh, and by the way, I could even save this person on MI because they started off at an 80. What would happen if I saved them on MI? Oh, and by the way, that's taking you from 3% to 4%. What if somebody's at 3 3/4 and I take them to 2 3/4? These numbers get insane. You're paying the thing off in 8 years. You're putting them in a situation where they get $500,000. Team, just open up and broaden your spectrum. College education is a point of friction. Retirement is a point of friction. Remove those points of friction and you will get exponential growth. I cannot tell you how many people have told us they made an extra $100,000 a month in loans that they're doing by just using this one tool. This one tool. Let that be you. But the best part they all tell me is, yes, the money is amazing and they love making the money. They love doing loans. But the real reward comes from changing the customer's lives and seeing their results and seeing their reactions. And then they tell everybody about you. Here's another point of friction we all have is time. Don't you love when somebody says, oh, I'm a good time manager? Yeah, really? You can manage time? That's a good one. So how do you manage time? I don't know. For me, I look at the clock. It just keeps ticking, second by second, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day. I wish I could manage time. I can't. But I can do something. I can do more things effectively with the time that we each have. We all have the same amount of time. Some people more effective. Hey, look, there's only one reason why you can't do $100 million a month in loan originations. There's one reason and one reason only. You run out of time. If you had unlimited time, you could do unlimited amounts of volume. It's time. So the key is to be more effective. Now, people know I'm pretty active in the market and watch the markets and have had some reasonable success within the marketplace and understanding it. So they ask me, is what's a good investment? What do you think of cryptos? What do you think of stock market here? What do you think of the bond market? So they ask, what do you think of gold? And then they say, what is the best investment right now? And I'm very clear on what the investment is. The best investment is in your brain. That's it. That's it. That's the best investment you can make. Invest in your brain and you will get incredible rewards. But that's one part of it. If it's in your brain, great. You got to get it out of your brain and explain it to others, which is why you have to practice your words. Are you scripted? Are you practicing? Do you get in front of a mirror and do you practice your presentation, or do you just wing it? Do you record your conversations and listen to them later? Because you wouldn't believe the crap that comes out of your mouth. Sometimes you don't even answer the customer's questions. Sometimes you're all over the place. Sometimes you make it so that it's not even understandable. Listen to what you say, practice, rehearse, and watch that point of friction be removed, and watch exponential growth and your closing ratios go through the roof. Explosive benefit here. This is one of the secrets to huge success, is doing this. It's painful. Takes some time, but it's an investment that will pay you dividends for the rest of your life. The other thing you need to do is ask interrogative questions. Now, many people in sales ask verb-led questions. Isn't this great? Shouldn't you be doing this? Oh, isn't this wonderful? These are verb-led questions. That triggers a defense mechanism within your brain to say, hey, I'm being sold here. I'm going to be skeptical. I'm going to be hesitant. So I want you to ask these two interrogative questions every chance you get, whether it even be in a relationship or whether it's in, obviously, referral opportunity or with a customer. And here we go. Here's the two questions, the two must-ask questions. Number one, what are your thoughts? And then please refrain from giving them what their thoughts should be. Let them think. Here's where you get the gold. Here's where they can sell themselves instead of you selling them. Here's where things can come up that we're misunderstanding. Here's where they can point out something that is different from what they want. This gives you gold. Don't miss the opportunity to ask them what their thoughts are. It's a lot more powerful if they sell themselves rather than me selling them. Second question. What are your concerns? Now, sometimes they're going to say they don't have any concerns. Well, you know what your job is? Point out the concerns that they should have. You need to do that. You need to treat each client as if they were your parent or your child or your best friend. And you were not able to do their transaction personally. They went somewhere else and you told them what questions to ask. You told them what to watch out for. You're going to be their advocate here. Because what you want is you want to be on the same side of the table. We start off with our customer on opposite ends of the table, but picture this in your mind. You're on their same side of the table as them, almost with your hand on their shoulder, looking at the transaction together in the same direction and analyzing it together as to what's good and what's not so good. It is not your job to sell them. They're not your adversary. Treat them like your parent, your child, your best friend, and watch your world change. Now, there's a great story about this. And during the Cold War, Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev were trying to have talks, and it was not going great. Ronald Reagan actually gets up suddenly and walks out. Nobody knew what to think. He walks right back in, puts his hand out to Mikhail Gorbachev and says, "Hi, I'm Ronald. Let's start again." And then he said to him, "Let's go for a walk together." And what the two men did was they went for a walk. Now, two men, two leaders of the world, walking together, facing the same direction, looking at things together, started to change the world and ended the Cold War. It's a great story. And it shows you how powerful it can be if you metaphorically are sitting on the same side of the desk as your customer, looking at it with them instead of selling them. See, we want to be more effective, and one of the ways, we want to be more effective, and one of the ways to be more effective is to become magnetic. We all want to be more magnetic. Isn't that a great quality? You want to draw people to you. How to become more magnetic? I'm going to give you the secret. Put this in my book, actually. Secret to being more magnetic is to have everyone that you come into contact with feel smarter after they've been in your presence. But you can't give what you don't have. You have to do the work. You have to gain knowledge. You have to script, rehearse, put in the hard work, and then do it. Don't be afraid of hard work. It's so great. That's the differentiator. That's how you separate yourself. That's how you're better than others. You put the work in and you gain magnetism. The other is to make them feel better. I mean, think about that. Don't you love being around people that make you feel better, that show you things, that teach you things? It's wonderful. That's how you become magnetic. And one of the ways to do that is when you're doing a transaction for someone, is to ask them those personal finance questions. Ask them about their plans for their kids' college education or their own personal retirement, if they're where they should be, or how can we use this tool, this mortgage, to do that? Now, if you're thinking for a second, it feels a little uncomfortable, that's crazy. You realize what you do with a customer the second you meet them. You know them all of 10 seconds, and you have the license to say, hey, nice to meet you. I'm Barry. How much money do you make? It's a pretty personal question. That's what you do all day. You don't even think about it. And then you follow it up with, oh, yeah, let me see what you got in the bank. How much money do you have? How much money do you make? How much money do you have? What were you late on your credit? Let me see the details of your divorce. Oh, my gosh. That we have no problem. But how can we use this mortgage as a tool to make sure that your kid's going to have a great college education, to make sure that your retirement is in good standing? The questions that they're begging you to ask them, the ones that are far more comfortable, and how much do you make? How about your credit? How about your divorce? That we have no problem with, but the ones that really would help them, that we have issue with. Think about that. One of the things that helped me as an originator, and again, just like you, I made a quantum leap when I stopped doing loans one at a time. I started doing them two at a time. Let me explain what that means. That means that I would marry the loan today with the next loan that we were going to be doing together. Because you can give them several questions as to, or several offers as to different products rather. But the one variable that comes into play is time and need. How long do we anticipate the life of this mortgage to be? What's our best guess? And that has to do with the market. Will there be a refinance opportunity? I think there will be. Just like when I was on calls with you back in 2019 and telling you guys that there was going to be a big refinance opportunity. I thought there would be a recession. I thought that the 10-year would go to 1%, and both happened before the lockdowns. 2 months before the lockdowns occurred in March. Those things happened in January. Official recession date, January 31st. So we were correct on those. But what did we say to do? Don't pay points. Don't pay upfront MI. And don't look at the lowest rate. Look for a higher rate. Why? Because the break-even points of those between 4 and 5 years. And I was very confident that any mortgage you originated would not last for 4 and 5 years. And I feel the same about that right now. I think you're going to have an incredible refinance opportunity within the next 2 to 3 years, maybe sooner, where the 10-year treasury will go below 1%, maybe towards 0.5% again. Rates will drop. And I think any of the loans that you're doing today are going to be eligible to refinance. So I think they will have a short shelf life, which is why I don't think you should pay upfront MI. I think you should do monthly MI. I don't think you should pay points. And to the extent that you can, get a good deal by taking a higher rate and alleviating closing costs instead of a lower rate, because you won't be able to catch up to the upfront costs because you won't have the loan that long. You're not going to have a loan that you're doing today for 5 years. And you have to be effective in that communication because customers want to work with people they trust. So I just gave that customer 5 different loan offers. So 5 different loan offers, and they're 30-year fixed at 3.25 with 0 with monthly MI. The same thing with upfront MI. Then if I bought it down with 2 points under those 2 options, or a 7-year arm. I just gave them 5 options, 5 loan offers, and they're dizzy. All they want to know is what's the best loan for me. And the answer is guess what? They're all the best loan for you. It depends on time, which is what shocked me as to why I was the only one as an originator who would put this on a timeline for them. Now, today we can make that very, very easy. But when people saw it on a timeline, they're like, oh, duh, I finally get it. I want to work with you because I understand. So I would tell the customer, well, here's the deal. Between years 1 and 2.5, you would take out the 3.25, 0 points with monthly MI. Between years 2.5 and 5.5, it's the 7-year arm. After 5.5 years, it's the 30-year fixed 2.75, 2 points with monthly MI, with upfront MI. And the customer says, oh, I get it. The only thing, Barry, is I don't like the 7-year arm. I don't want to take an adjustable. Sure, unclick it. And now by unclicking it, no arm, we see that between years starting point and 3.5, It's that 30-year fixed 3.25 0 points. And then for a brief period, it'd be the one that would be upfront MI. And then again, it would be 2.75 2 points with upfront MI. It'd be like, Barry, I don't know if I want to pay points. Okay, let's take this one and this one, which are points, and remove them. So we'll take no arms and no points. Should you take a 30-year fixed at 3.25 with 0 points with either monthly MI or upfront MI? And here's your answer. For the first 3.5 years, you're better off with the monthly MI. So if you think you're going to move or refinance within 3.5 years, monthly MI. If you don't think you're going to move and you don't think you're going to refinance for longer than 3.5 years, let's take the upfront MI. And the customer says, oh, I finally get it. You're the first loan originator that I understand. I want to work with you, even in many cases, if the rate's not the best rate, because I understand you. The best advice is so much better. Look, it's much more expensive to get the lowest rate with the wrong advice. And you want to amplify your message, right? This is what we have to do. How do I amplify my message? You want to exponentially grow through visibility. And what can you do? Repeat the same message over and over. That's a time drain. Social media and video creation needs to be very effective. So we created Social Studio. And what we do is we take your computer or your phone and we turn it into a teleprompter. We give you scripts that last 30 to 40 seconds. And all you do is read it. You could scroll it, change the scroll speed. And when you do, it looks like you're looking at the camera, and you could choose from dozens and dozens of scripts or create your own script. Save time. Look, if there's something that you're repeating over and over and over again, just create a script and send it out. Remember, you can't manage time, but you can be more effective with the time you have. Post it on social media, get many, many hits, expose yourself, amplify your message, be more effective with your time. And if you want to change your focus as well, you could grow exponentially. I want to give you a lesson from the driving school that I had. And I like to drive on the track, and I enjoy it. I think it's fun, but I think it teaches a lot. And I really like to do so from a point of view of being a student. And when I go for lessons with a professional driver, professional race driver, I'm on the track and they're helping me. And one time there was a lesson that I want to share with you because I think it's really important. And my instructor said to me, Barry, says, I noticed you, just like about everybody else, you tend to look at the car in front of you. And he said, you should be looking much further down the road. And I was like, yeah, okay. And I could tell he knew I wasn't really connecting why. And he said, let's pull over, Barry. Maybe pull over to the side of the road. And he says, here, take your bottle of water. And I want to take your bottle of water and put it down and then step back about 20 feet. And it kind of looked a little bit like this illustration here. So what I want to ask you to do is the same thing my driver instructor asked me to do. And he said, now focus and stare at the bottle of water. Please do that right now. While you're doing that, can you read the sign that's down the road clearly? Just stay focused on the bottle of water. Can you read the sign? Well, I can't. But now look at the sign down the road. I can read the sign now. You probably can too. Question is, can you still see the bottle of water? The answer is yes. So here's the thing, is that if you just stare at the bumper of the car in front of you, like so many people do when they drive, you're going to miss stuff up ahead. And on the track, that means you're not going to be better positioned for some of the turns. But much more important than that is when you're at home, when you're with your family, when you're with your loved ones, your children in the car. If you're looking at the car in front of you, you're going to be dependent on their reaction time. But if you're looking further down the road, you'll still see the car in front of you. But God forbid, if there's bad stuff, you'll see it even before the car in front of you does. And you can protect yourself and your family better. You'll be a safer, a better driver. Now, you do this in business and you change your focus and you look further down the road, well, then you can have exponential growth. If you can see those points of friction, if you can resolve those points of friction, you can have more success than you ever imagined. Because then you'll be able to repeat that excellence and jump S-curve to S-curve to S-curve. That's what the very best do in any profession. Now, if you want to be one of the best, you might want to get your CMA designation, your Certified Mortgage Advisor, where you understand so much about the market and be heads and shoulders above your competition. The reviews on this are through the roof. People are saying it is the best course that has ever existed within the history of the mortgage industry, bar none. There are 0 bad reviews on it. That's normally $2,000 because of the call today with Flagstar. If you put in the code at becomecma.com, you will save $400. This is a life-changing thing to do. If you are not a member of MBS Highway, where you get all of the things that we showed you today and all of these tools and much, 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 much more, it's normally $199 a month. You go to our site right now, that's what it would cost you, or $2,000 a year. Because of this Flagstar event, we are discounting it $80 a month or $800 a year. You then are in a position of dropping the price here. You can either go to mbshighway.com, put in the code FLAG, or email Sasha at MBS Highway, Sasha at MBS Highway, and we'll walk you through. Last thing is, if you want both, It's $2,400 for both instead of $4,000. I know it's a big investment, but it'll pay off for you. MBShighway.com, all flag, or Sasha at MBS Highway. If you want to do that today and save this money, you can do that. Team, I want to thank you. I hope that you've got a chance to read Money in the Streets. If you haven't, it's a great book. I want to say I appreciate so much for all of you taking your valuable time to be with us today. And I think we finished 1 minute over.
You're good. And hey, this is Barry. One, can't thank you enough, right? Just tremendous content. And I love the theme around friction points, right? Because that's really what we face every single day, right? And there's a couple things you put in there that I think are just invaluable in regards to, I've gotten to know you for quite some time now, years going back. And the idea of being the advisor to the borrower is a common theme that you have continued to drive into this industry. And I don't think people do it enough, to be honest with you, right? Because those friction points, the borrower hears them and interprets them based off of, to your point earlier, maybe it's the media, maybe it's social media, and it's not really fact. Sometimes it fits a bias that somebody's trying to push, right? Or to your point earlier, when they're calculating some of the percentages and they're talking about, home appreciation and affordability, they're looking at the wrong metrics, right? So I love what you did today. And I can't say thank you enough for supporting, as you always have, the channel and our business partners. Real quick though, there were a couple questions. Well, a lot around, and you just kind of hit it at the end. So for everybody, if you didn't see it, go back and look at this, because obviously you have access to the presentation again at the end. Barry answered where you get a lot of these tools that he was showing in his presentation, right? It's through MBS Highway and the offer. He generously has made a great offer for everybody today through Flagstar and being partnered with us, that you have the ability to get access to a lot of stuff. So for the people that ask those questions, you want to get in touch with Sasha, you want to get in touch with MBS Highway, you want to get signed up. That's where you're going to get all those tools. And they are powerful, right? Think about sitting in front of a borrower, and literally that last one that he was just showing about the different products and what's good for you. I don't want points. I don't want an arm. Think about that conversation with a borrower, right? But you get that all through MBS Highway. So please feel free to reach out to them. One of the questions, Barry, though, that did come up, somebody said on debt consolidation loans, their borrowers tend to receive pushback from their financial advisors as to not do a debt consolidation loan. And the question was just to you, like, why do you think a financial advisor would put somebody in a position not to consolidate debt and take advantage of that opportunity?
Perhaps they have their own agenda. Perhaps they don't understand it. So I think if you did this evaluation and you showed them what the difference is, and you could easily do that. We have that tool in MBS Highway as well, or you want to do that on your own, however you want to do it. But you show the evaluation, you show the results. It's pretty difficult to refute. I would be curious as to what potential obstacle you have. You're making the same payment you're making now, but you're saving hundreds of thousands of dollars in a guaranteed tax-free way. It's a difficult one to refute. Perhaps that financial advisor is saying, "Oh, well, give me the $1,800 and I'll invest it for you." Maybe that could be better. I'm not going to argue that point. If they think that's better, if the customer wants to do that, great. But we got to create the $1,800 from somewhere, right? So
right.
We do it from debt consolidation, then it works. So every situation is different. Who knows what the parameters were that caused that financial advisor to make that comment? But I think if they were to see this particular example, in my humble opinion, it'd be difficult to point to it as a potential negative.
Well, I think to the point, right, Barry, it's another point of education. So if you're the advisor and you're talking to the borrower and the borrower's financial planner is giving them advice, and let's face it, people trust their financial advisors, right? There's a reason why they use them. Think about the opportunity to get on a phone with the financial advisor and the borrower, or set a meeting and go through all of this conversation. Not only do you show yourself as the expert, from a mortgage perspective to your borrower and to your customer, but think what you may get by having that conversation with the financial advisor. They may now become part of your referral network for future business, right? So I think it gives good opportunity. Hey, one of the other questions that came up kind of went along when you were talking about the housing inventory and, kind of some excellent charts on, the birth rates and then the decline and like where are prices going? Is there really a bubble? One of the questions came around foreclosures, right? And the, quote unquote myth, or maybe somewhat of a reality as we move forward, of a bunch of the foreclosures that are going to hit the marketplace over the next 18 months. Exactly. Right.
It's not
So
gonna
I'm going to let you talk about it. Go ahead.
No, there's no inventory out there. So
Right.
people have equity. So as heaven forbid, we never want to see somebody enter foreclosure, and the current rates of foreclosure are 0.3%. 36% of the housing market is owned free and clear, which translates to 1 out of 500 homes is in foreclosure. 1 out of 500. So one's too many. But if that were to come on the market, that'd be like taking a can of water and dropping it on the beach. Okay.
That's right.
Going to get absorbed. This is not something, and forbearance is misunderstood. 25% of forbearance, people are making the payments. 25% of forbearance, people that need forbearance. You have forbearance issues where people now have gotten their jobs back. And in those cases, unfortunately, where there's forbearance without their job coming back and the payment is unmanageable, they now have equity due to this enormous amount of growth that we've seen over the past 2 years, over 20% equity that they've gained in the past 2 years. What they would do is they would protect that equity, not go into foreclosure, put the home on the market. The inventory is being starved for anyway. It would be absorbed. So this should not be an issue.
Yeah. And I think, again, there's those myths, right? It's like dealing in the facts and the reality. And look, a lot of the other questions, Barry, you actually answered as you kind of went into the presentation on a couple different things. And a lot was around how do I get access to the information, like the charts that Barry's used, and where is that? We obviously touched on that already. What's this? First 6 months to strengthen partnerships to generate referrals. So for the first 6 months, as you talked about, right? I think we were all there at some point. I know I started in the industry straight out of college. I graduated from Drexel up in Philly and literally started right in the marketplace. And I faced a lot of those things, right? 24-year-old kid trying to break down the door with realtors and builders and financial planners who have, 20, 30 years of experience.
I got it.
The friction point was there. We went through that. You talked about it.
So here's the deal. And certainly it applies if you're new, but it applies if you're experienced as well. So you want to amplify your message. So you have such an easier time today. When I first started in the business, I was a young guy like you, John, and sometimes as young guys, heck, I still make a lot of mistakes, but as a young guy, you're prone to make mistakes. I was just blessed with the birth of my twins, Dan and Nicole. And, they were 2 months old. And I made this crazy decision to get into the mortgage business, not realizing how hard it was going to be. And realtors didn't want to do business with me. So failure was not an option because I understood that I could not fail. And so at night I went out and I knocked on people's doors. My third week in the business, I wrote 16 transactions. I would talk to anybody, person who had the pizzeria, my haircutter, my accountant, anybody I was giving money to. I had a captive audience while I was giving them money to because I was paying for services. I told them what I did. And until I was able to build realtor relationships and gain experience, I was able to still do business and support my family. Even to the extent of, as I was driving up and down the New Jersey toll roads, I would not go to the exact change. Forget about going back to the dark ages. There was no automated way to get your toll collected. I had to physically put a quarter in the basket. But I had the quarter. I went to where you would go to a toll collector and gave them my card and said in those 10 seconds or 5 seconds as I was passing through, hey, if I can ever help you on a purchase of a home or refinance and save you money, call me. That was it.
Yeah.
My friends would make fun of me because it would take longer instead of going through the express lane, until a guy by the name of Steve Horton called me and I did his refinance and then did 17 of his associates.
That's right. That's right.
I was not the only person in New Jersey in the mortgage business driving those roads. Everybody was, but I looked at everything as an opportunity. Today, it's so much easier because you can, as a new person, gain expertise, gain knowledge, and then amplify that message through social media with scripts that will go out there and people will listen to you, be drawn to you, want to connect with you, want to follow you, and want to do business with you. It is much easier today.
That's right. Well, hey, Barry, I can't say thank you enough. Always great to have you on. Always great to hear your insights. You always come at it with, I believe, to be a fresh perspective. And what I love is when you do it, it's like, here's the moment today, but you need to be thinking for the next, 6, 12, 18 months, what's that going to look like? And I think a lot of times we get caught in the here and now, right? We all have big pipelines. Everybody's working through. There's this issue, that issue from a manufacturer of a loan. And you come out of a year, like you mentioned earlier, right? There's a lot of people had their best year of their career last year. And now all of a sudden it's going to be different moving forward, right? So I always love when we're able to get you and to share your words of wisdom with the group. So can't say thank you enough for joining us today.
By the way, that social studio is included, and I saw that Shannon had put that in there. So
oh, good. Yes, I was going to mention that again. I can't recommend reaching out to the team over at MBS Highway. The banner was scrolling down there with information how to get them.
Yeah.
Barry, you talked about Sasha.
Email Sasha at MBS Highway. She'll take care of it.
Exactly.
S-A-S-H-A. Sasha.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Hey, Barry, again, thanks. Can't say
thank you, everybody. Hey, God bless you guys. Be healthy, be safe, and appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Okay, guys. Hey, appreciate it. I know that was jam-packed. We had marketed this one. Obviously Barry gave just a wealth of information there. And look, I'd like to tell you again, like we just said, thanks for carving out the time. Certainly appreciate you investing in yourself, right? Hopefully you got value out of this one. I know that I got a page of notes I'm going to follow up on with my sales team. And then I just want to let you know on the next event, I think we're probably pulling up a slide here. As always, second Thursday of every month. And we have one of our great partners and a good friend to Flagstar, Najee Patel over at Freddie Mac, is going to come on and talk all things affordable housing, affordable lending, what the future landscape looks like, and how you should be thinking about that and including that in your business strategy moving forward. So look forward to that next month, and you'll certainly start getting some information on that as we get closer. But again, can't say thank you enough. Be safe. Thanks for investing in yourself, and make it a great day.